What happens when the game's biggest star locks eyes with the man in charge, and neither one blinks? On a night that was supposed to be just another regular season game, something happened inside that stadium that nobody saw coming. A decision made in a dugout. A reaction from the most watched player on the planet. And then, a ruling from the umpire that sent shockwaves through the entire league. Shohei Ohtani rarely shows emotion on the field. That's what makes him so unique. He is ice. He is control. He is routine wrapped inside greatness. But on this particular night, something broke through that armor. And when Ohtani's composure cracked, even slightly, the entire baseball world stopped to notice. And at the center of it all? Giants manager Bob Melvin, a coach who has spent decades in this game, who has managed through pressure, controversy, and chaos. And Tony Vitello, the umpire who made the call that nobody could stop talking about. This isn't just about one play. This is about what it means to compete at the highest level, what happens when authority meets elite expectation, and why this moment will be studied, debated, and remembered long after the final out was recorded. Let's break it all down. To understand what happened, you first need to understand what was at stake going into this game. The Dodgers and the Giants. One of the oldest, most storied rivalries in all of American sports. When these two teams meet, there is no such thing as a casual inning. Every pitch carries history. Every at-bat carries pressure. And every decision made in the dugout is measured against decades of expectation. Shohei Ohtani walked into this game the same way he walks into every game, focused, prepared, and completely locked in. His pre-game routine is meticulous. Those who have watched him up close describe a player who eliminates distractions with the precision of a surgeon. By the time he steps onto the field, his mind is already 5 pitches ahead of everyone else. But what unfolded that night was not something any routine could prepare him for. In the middle innings, with the game still very much in the balance, Giants manager Bob Melvin made a move. It was not a simple pitching change. It was not a standard defensive shift. It was a decision, a deliberate, calculated tactical choice, that directly affected how the game was being played against Ohtani. And Ohtani noticed. The Dodgers' dugout stirred. Coaches exchanged glances. And then, in a moment caught clearly on camera, Ohtani's expression changed. That famous composure, that wall of quiet intensity, flickered. His jaw tightened. His eyes found the Giants' dugout. And for just a few seconds, Shohei Ohtani looked furious. That moment alone would have been enough for people to talk about for days. But then Tony Vitello stepped in, and everything escalated. Bob Melvin has been in this league long enough to know exactly what he is doing when he makes an unconventional call. He is not a manager who acts on instinct alone. He is a chess player. A strategist. A coach who has won at every level and who understands that sometimes, the only way to compete against a generational talent is to disrupt his rhythm. And disrupting Shohei Ohtani's rhythm is easier said than done. What Melvin did was this: he orchestrated a series of mound visits, defensive realignments, and deliberately timed delays that were clearly designed to break Ohtani's focus at the plate. Every time Ohtani stepped in to bat, something shifted. A pitching coach jogged out. Players repositioned. Time was called. On paper, every single one of those actions was within the rules. But baseball has always existed in the space between what is legal and what is sporting. And the Dodgers, and Ohtani in particular, clearly felt that Melvin had crossed a line. Not a rulebook line. A respect line. Veteran baseball observers immediately recognized what Melvin was doing. Some called it genius. You use every legal tool available to neutralize a player like Ohtani, and if that means slowing the game down to a crawl and making him stand in that batter's box a little longer than he'd like, you do it. Because the alternative is letting him get comfortable, and a comfortable Shohei Ohtani is a disaster for your pitching staff. Others saw it differently. There is an unwritten code in baseball. A code that says you compete hard, but you compete clean. You beat your opponent with preparation and execution, not by manufacturing delays designed to irritate the best player in the world. Ohtani, it seems, landed firmly on the side of that second opinion. And that's when Tony Vitello made his presence known. Home plate umpire Tony Vitello had been watching the game closely. The delays. The visits. The deliberate slow rolling of the game's pace. And at a certain point, he made a decision. He issued a warning. Not to the Dodgers. Not to Ohtani. To Bob Melvin and the Giants. Vitello's ruling was clear: the Giants' behavior had crossed into the territory of deliberate game manipulation, and if it continued, the team would face further penalties. In the immediate aftermath, a Giants coach was reportedly restricted from making any further mound visits for the remainder of the inning. It was a rare, forceful intervention from an umpire in a regular season game, and it sent a message that could be heard from every corner of the stadium. The crowd reacted immediately. Giants fans were stunned. Dodger fans roared. And cameras immediately cut to Melvin, whose expression was stone cold, the look of a manager who absolutely disagreed with the call, but knew better than to say too much in the heat of the moment. Vitello's decision was bold. It was also, depending on who you ask, either completely justified or a serious overreach of umpiring authority. For those who supported the ruling, the pitch clock era is here. Baseball has worked hard to speed the game up, to eliminate the kind of stall tactics that frustrated an entire generation of fans. What the Giants were doing ran directly counter to the spirit of those changes. Vitello was not just making a call, he was enforcing an intent. And that intent matters. For those who disagreed, managers have always had the right to make mound visits. Defensive realignments are legal. Nothing the Giants did was explicitly prohibited. By issuing a warning based on perceived intent rather than a specific rule violation, Vitello opened himself, and the league, up to serious criticism. Where exactly is the line? Who decides when a legal action becomes an unsporting one? These are questions that do not have clean answers. But they are exactly the questions that make baseball endlessly fascinating. Let's return to Shohei Ohtani, because his reaction in this moment tells us something important. We have spent years watching Ohtani perform at a level that defies logic. Two-way player. World Series champion. MVP. The man who redefined what it means to be a professional baseball player. And through all of it, he has carried himself with a quiet dignity that sets him apart from nearly everyone else in the sport. He does not chirp at opponents. He does not work the umpires. He does not complain to cameras. He simply performs, and then he goes home and prepares to perform again. That is why the moment his composure cracked was so significant. Those who know Ohtani's preparation understand that routine is not just a preference for him, it is a necessity. His batting approach is built on a rhythm. On timing. On mental preparation that happens not just in the cage, but in the batter's box itself, between pitches. When that rhythm is disrupted artificially and repeatedly, it is not just an inconvenience. It is an attack on the system he has spent years building. Ohtani's visible frustration was not the reaction of a player who was rattled. It was the reaction of a professional who recognized exactly what was being done to him, and who disagreed with it fundamentally. What makes this even more interesting is the context of competition. Ohtani wants to be beaten by the best pitch, the best preparation, the best execution. That is the competition he has signed up for. When a team introduces external variables to change the nature of that competition, something real is lost, even if nothing in the rulebook has been broken. His reaction was a message. A rare one. And the baseball world heard it. Step back from the individual game. Step back from the specific inning and the specific ruling. Look at what this moment represents. Baseball is at a crossroads right now. The pitch clock has changed the game. The sport is faster, more dynamic, and drawing in younger audiences at a rate that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. But with that speed has come a new set of questions. What happens when teams try to game the system? What happens when legal tactics are used in ways that violate the spirit of the reforms? Tony Vitello's ruling was, in many ways, a statement about where baseball wants to go. It was a signal that umpires are empowered, perhaps more than ever before, to make judgment calls about intent, not just action. That is a significant shift. And it will have consequences that extend well beyond this one game. Bob Melvin, for his part, is unlikely to change his approach entirely. Great managers adapt. They find the edge of every rulebook and they push right up against it. That is the job. But this ruling may force the league to have a more explicit conversation about what is and is not acceptable in the pitch clock era. And that conversation is long overdue. And Ohtani? He will return to his routine tomorrow. He will eat his carefully managed meals, work through his preparation, and step back into the batter's box with the same quiet intensity that has defined his career. Because that is who he is. He does not stay frustrated. He converts frustration into focus. That, more than any home run or strikeout, is what separates him from everyone else. What should we take away from all of this? A Giants coach made a move designed to disrupt the best player in baseball. An umpire decided that enough was enough and issued a penalty that caught everyone off guard. And Shohei Ohtani, the man who never blinks, blinked. But here is the real question this moment leaves us with: in a sport that is changing faster than it ever has before, who gets to define the line between smart strategy and unsporting conduct? Is it the rulebook? The umpires? The players? Or the unwritten code that has governed baseball longer than any written rule? There are no easy answers. But the fact that a single game, a single decision in a single dugout, can generate this much discussion is proof of something important: baseball still matters. These moments still matter. And Shohei Ohtani, whether he is launching home runs or simply standing in a batter's box with fire behind his eyes, still has the power to make the entire world pay attention. The game is bigger than any one player. But sometimes, one player reminds you exactly why you love the game in the first place.